Richard, thank you so much for joining me here at the NASDAQ market site in Times Square. Edelman launches an annual global trust barometer every year from the World Economic Forum at Davos. Could you explain to equities users a little bit about what it measures?
So we look at the trust in institutions, in business, government, NGOs, and media. And we've been doing this for 16 years, and we do it in 28 countries. And the big story this year is the very profound gap between the attitudes of those who are 75,000 plus in income, college plus educated, and read 4 media a day versus all the rest. So the top, say, 15% of people versus the other 85%. And it's as if the world is black and white. On the one side, we've never seen such high trust in institutions on the part of the informed publics, the elites. On the other hand, the trust of the mass has absolutely flatlined since the Great Recession in 2009. So the gap is huge between them, and from that gap comes Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders.
It's very interesting, and we'll get to the election in a moment, but you mentioned you've been doing this for over 16 years now. Any recurring patterns that you're seeing, and what new countries of interest have you added?
So the trust in business is the most volatile. It went down after the dot-com, rose to 2008, crashed along with the markets, and then has gradually risen. Government had a rise in 2008-9 to bail out business, and then has really gone into trouble and is the lowest trusted institution in almost every country. Media is a slow slide, and NGOs remain the highest trusted institution around the world.
Well, it's no question that trust matters. Talk to us a little bit about the various different sectors that you've measured. I noticed that there seems to be a rebound in financial services.
Well, banks and financial services have been the lowest in trust since 2008. And gradually, slowly, grudgingly, they're winning their way back. What I do worry about, though, Sylvia, is with this political year and the attacks on banks, the possibility that actually financial institutions could slip backwards because they're not really doing a good job of telling their story, how they're benefiting entrepreneurs, how they're making loans in communities of distress, and they're letting themselves be characterized as selfish and bailed out by government.
Well, many of the equities users, as you know, are smaller emerging growth companies.
Yeah.
What advice do you give companies that are still evolving and trying to innovate on trust? And as they evolve, what should they really be looking at?
Here's the biggest watch out sign. By a 2-to-1 margin, we found in this survey that there is a concern that innovation is going too quickly, and that in fact people feel as if it's out of control, and the government isn't keeping enough regulation on it. And so I would urge all entrepreneurs, tell your story. Go out there and say, hey, this is how I'm creating jobs. This is how I'm improving consumers' lives. Don't be characterized as job killer because that's going to be bad for you, too much regulation.
That's great advice. And just to shift gears just a little, you mentioned the presidential election, especially this time around. It seems more heated than other elections. What advice are you giving CEOs on how to become involved, and in particular, given that there's a lot of dialogue and a lot of controversy this election?
So if you think about the pyramid of influence and the elites at the top and the mass at the bottom, that's the historic model. I think that's been flipped upside down in this campaign. And what's happened is you have a detachment of authority, which the elites have, from influence, which the mass has. And the mass is speaking to each other, and they're speaking peer-to-peer. The mass uses social, search, and opinion television. They don't read newspapers and magazines. That's a profound change. So the elites are simply talking to themselves when they talk in the Wall Street Journal. And so my strong suggestion is go where the people are and speak in simple and important ways. Let the employees talk to each other. Give them the information. Don't have the CEOs preach from the mountain anymore. It doesn't work. And tell, again, your story of positive job effects and the improvement of the product quality.
Have you found that many of the companies are still too shy to get out there and endorse a specific candidate?
I don't think that companies should endorse candidates. I think that's the wrong thing. However, it's really important for CEOs to get out from under the bunker. You know, for the last 7 years, since the Great Recession, companies have been afraid of government, or they were worried about activist funds. Now's the time for business to lead. You know, the trust in business is 20 points higher than trust in government. Who else is going to lead? We have to fill the void. We have to use our bully pulpit to talk about supply chain, to talk about, you know, how we pay employees better, talk about how we're hiring people from disadvantaged communities. The best example of people like Howard Schultz going out and getting 100,000 kids from disadvantaged communities into jobs by holding job fairs with 16 other U.S. companies, or Jeff Immelt on manufacturing from GE. Those are the kinds of people you should emulate.
And those are great examples. And finally, I did just want to transition a little. We talk a lot about CEOs, and with International Women's Month approaching on Tuesday, March 8th, why is it that we're still seeing so little women CEOs among Fortune 500 companies? You know,
at Edelman, we have a program that's very much oriented to developing female executives, and it's called the Gwen program. And basically, we've got to create mentor opportunities, not just woman to woman, but to senior male executives, and make sure that women get as many opportunities for international service, for moving, you know, across the company. And even if they want to take a year off for having a child or whatever else, business has to be flexible enough to absorb that and give them more chances. You know, I sat with Andrea Young, who had run Avon, and she's now running Grameen, which is a nonprofit that gives $1,000, $2,000 grants to women doing startups in inner cities. And it was so inspirational. You know, she was talking about immigrant women who are starting dry cleaners and all this. And I thought to myself, this is a lady who gets it. And she does it partly because of Avon and partly because she's Chinese background and, you know, believes in entrepreneurship. That's the future of the country.
That's fascinating, and we definitely need more female mentors. Do you find, though, that the problem lies in the boards? The boards of directors still seem to be mainly male-dominated.
You know, I have 3 daughters. They're going to take over Edelman. I have a huge interest in promoting women, and I think it's just a gradual process. You know, I started in business 37 years ago. There is progress, but women have to keep foot on the accelerator, follow Indra Nooyi and some of the others, and make sure that you're getting every possible opportunity.